better than yesterday.
Better than yesterday. Oh, well, that's good. That's good. Because in a way it was sort of tougher, I think, but it's right.
Yeah, I found it
Yeah.
fun. First round's all right, it's just the second round that,
The second half hour.
I think my brain says, well, you've done half an hour now, you're all good.
Yeah. 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 Your brain sort of knows, like if you expect to sit there for 2 hours, your mind sort of is content for about an hour and a quarter, and then it starts really whinging. Whereas if you know you're only going to sit there for an hour, it starts whinging at the sort of half hour, 3/4 of an hour mark. But if you're going to sit there for a half hour, it starts complaining at about quarter past or whatever. So that's why I kind of like on these retreats to put you into a position where you've done an hour's worth of meditation, because you won't do that at home, but when at home you can just go, well, I've done an hour, so I can easily do 20 minutes. Come on. And hopefully the mind will be like
It's
that.
pushing that boundary too of having like injuries when you're sitting. I mean, I know that that's just a state of mind, but it's not actually, it's a physiological thing. So it's kind of just trying to find a position where I can really not be distracted by pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned pain, because we'll talk about pain. But you're right, and it's always the middle way. You don't want to get up at the first instance of a twinge. That's a bit pathetic, and you don't want to be masochistic and really hurt yourself. So you've got to find that middle road, and only you know that. Only you know your own system. But there are a few things that we can do with pain. Actually, are you recording?
Yes.
So one of the things that we can do, first of all, is we do need to sort of acknowledge the pain. So if you go into denial, if you try to ignore it, it kind of keeps coming back at you. So there doesn't need to be this, well, it's acceptance really. You've sort of got to accept the pain. And so you acknowledge the pain is there, and then you sort of get on and keep meditating anyway. So a few ways you can do that is sort of breathing into the pain helps. So if you imagine the pain, well, my pain's in my hip, so that's why I keep pointing to here, but wherever it is, you sort of breathe into it, breathe out, breathe into it. And if you really take notice of the pain does move quite a lot. It throbs and goes backwards, and throbs and moves like this. And then it can actually shift a little bit. Front of the hip, back of the hip, side of the hip, or whatever. So seeing that impermanence is quite interesting. You know that, well, that bit that was in pain is actually not in pain anymore, even though the pain is there, but it's shifted. So it's a new bit of pain, so maybe that's okay, and stuff like that. Another suggestion is taking a little, that someone suggested, it's like you're seeing it out the corner of your eye. So you sort of go, yes, I know you're there, I can sort of see you, but you're not my main focus. I'm mainly focusing on the breath. And another tip to do that, which is sort of the same thing, is you think about your whole body and you say, right, what percentage of my body is in pain? Well, it's only like 2%. It's only this bit down here, or this knee. So that's not too bad, really. If I concentrate on my whole body, and you actually think, well, this bit feels good. This bit feels good. It's just this bit down here which is in pain, so that helps. And then another tip, which I think actually works really well, is decide on a scale of 1 to 10 how much pain you're in, and be realistic. Go, right, well, pain is 10 is excruciating. I'm not a 10. So let's say I'm at a 3. It's kind of a nagging pain. Yeah. And then decide what level of pain you're going to move at. Are you going to move at a 4 or a 5, or a 6, or are you going to move at a 3? So when the pain gets to a certain threshold, then you'll move, and until then you're not going to worry about it. So but here you have to be realistic, because if aversion kicks in, you'll say it's a 7. You go, oh, this pain is a 7. But when you go, right now, realistically, if you're putting my real, what is it really? It's actually not that bad. You can actually you can disassociate a little bit and go, I can see that it's aversion kicking in. It's really only 3. I'm just making a mountain out of a molehill here. But you tell yourself, I will move once you get to a 4. But realistically, you're not at a 4 yet. So I'm going to sit here. And then of course, when the pain does get to a 4, you go, yep, you're at that threshold now. I'll just change my legs over and just put the on top on the right one, and that hopefully should ease it, or put one behind you or whatever, or sit on a stool. So then you move to ease the pain. So there are some tips that I've used to sort of deal with pain, and again, it's really good if you can take the aversion, see the pain and see the aversion, and see them as 2 different things, because dealing with aversion is really part of the practice. So if you're in pain and you stick with it and you try to accept it, you may, I've had the experience several times where the aversion drops away, and actually it could go right up to a 7 or an 8. And you actually are quite happy to sit there. You wouldn't because of what you said, Cheryl, you are doing an injury to yourself, but you feel like, I could sit here in this pain if I wanted to, because I've just got no aversion. And at that point, you really are understanding that aversion is a separate thing, and aversion can be overcome. The pain can't. My teacher said, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Yeah? Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Yeah, so that's a little bit on pain.
The other thing that I get a consistent pain in my hip, but it's consistent, but it's inconsistent, so it only happens, but when it does happen, it's like that pattern of it's there, it's not there. And on the way up here, it was really, really bad, and I stopped at Belair National Park and went for a walk and just went, so what is this? Because it's not physical. I know it's not physical. There's nothing wrong with my hips. And looked at what's the emotion behind that. Okay, so what's guiding the emotion? What's the thought that created that emotion? And just did a whole sort of cleansing routine with the green from the trees. And I haven't had it since, which that doesn't mean it's not going to come back, but it does mean that I've done a lot of sitting and stuff that normally I couldn't do. So it was a really interesting experience.
It is. Well, we do that in NLP as well, because there are pains which are created by negative emotions or limiting beliefs, and when you actually get rid of those limiting beliefs, then the pain disappears as well. So sometimes it is something you hold in your mind causes the pain in your body. So yeah, it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it was interesting. It's the first time I've actually thought about, hang on a minute, why
diseases too.
It's not here all the time, so there's got to be something else going on here.
And a lot of people believe that a lot of diseases are caused by your mental negativities, and you've got a trauma in the past which you've repressed, and that trauma has been repressed for many years, and then suddenly you get a stomach ulcers or whatever. Treat them, they don't go away, and then you do therapy and you resolve the trauma and let go of it, and a week later the ulcers are gone and you're back to full health. So it is just amazing what the unconscious mind can do to the body and how it can heal the body as well. It's really incredible. So, good. Any other comments? How did anyone get to the state where they got incredibly focused and aware, and then did a mini break and felt that state of peace?
But I came in late, and it wasn't. I actually had to work through some stuff before I did, and then I finished it with the meditation, and I finished it in that blissful state, which was really nice.
I was looking down and I suddenly thought, time? It was 7 o'clock, so lucky my unconscious kicked in and told me the time. Great. So we're going to move on this morning, and I'm going to do the 9 stages. And unfortunately, Beck has had to leave. Her dog was vomiting in the night and apparently quite sick, and so she felt she needed to go quickly, leaving all her stuff behind, go and be with her dog. So I'd like you to turn to this page in your book. Now, this again, I am skewed towards the Tibetan kind of side of things. It's just that's where I've been trained. I spend most of my time sort of. One of my main teachers, Lama Chaya Rinpoche, is from the Tibetan tradition. So, but there are some very good stuff. There's good stuff, and this painting you'll find on the inside doorway of pretty much all monasteries, Tibetan monasteries in the world. So if you go into a monastery, there's always this kind of little four-chamber. It's like there's a door and then there's a little area.
Yeah, you have this in your office as well.
Yeah, and I have it in my office. And then there's the main monastery, and just on the side there's often some iconographs, and this is a very common one. And it actually shows the stages of meditation. And there's a lot of depth to this little pictorial. And what it is that everyone in meditation has their own individual experiences. But interestingly, when yogis come together and talk about their experiences, there are a number of experiences which are the same, and they all agree that there are certain stages that you go through in deepening your meditation and getting better and better at your meditation. And so they've really recorded this, and they've drawn the picture obviously to represent these different stages. And for me, this is good in a number of ways. First of all, I'm an engineer, so I love maps and I love guides and I love them to know where I'm going. But also, when you read it, I guess it's humbling to sort of know, I thought I was going too well, but by this I'm actually only on stage 2, and it's like, I've got a long way to go. But it's also really motivational, because when you practice meditation, you actually do feel these stages. And when you realise, hey, I've got up to stage 2 and now I'm actually up to stage 3, you think, well, if stage 1, 2 and 3 are correct, then 4, 5 and 6 must be correct. It's like, well, this really does work. And so when you hear that, you feel inspired that this meditation thing does work, and I'm not a reject. I can get at least to stage 3, so there's no reason I can't get to stage 4, and if we're going to do that, I should be able to get to stage 5. So it motivates you to want to practice, at least it does me. So it's very good. And it gives you a map of where you are on the path and how far you've got to go. So from that point of view, I like to go through with everyone to see what you expect. Yeah? So should we start?
I think I'm up to stage 5.
Oh, it takes a lot of practice to get to stage 5.
Oh, well, that's what it looks like.
Does it? Well, it's possible, but normally you would need to go into retreat for, maybe 3 months or something.
Okay.
Right?
But it looks like I'm up to stage 5. Maybe I'm up to stage.
Right, just keep practicing, and sometimes you think, oh yeah, I think I'm on stage 5, and then you realise, no, actually I'm really on stage 3.
Okay.
So we'll see how we go. But anyway, it starts at the bottom, okay? So the bottom, the elephant is all black, which shows ignorance of the mind. So we don't really know how the mind works at this stage. We've got all these obscurations, obscuring us from the wisdom and clarity of the mind. And the meditator, so the meditator is the man, and his mind is the elephant. And the mind is, the analogy of the mind is an elephant, because it's very, very powerful, and it can do a lot of damage. An elephant can do a lot of damage if it wants to, but it also, when trained properly and harnessed properly, an elephant is incredibly powerful to do a lot of good. It can, pull huge trees along and do a lot of work. But this elephant is unfortunately out of control. And he's being led by a black monkey. If you can see the little monkey there. And we might have heard of the term monkey mind or the restless mind. So restlessness and distraction is what guides our mind, not wisdom and direction, if you like. But our meditator over on the right here is determined to tame this elephant, and he has two tools. He has the rope of mindfulness and the hook of insight. So I talked about them on Friday evening. So they're the two tools which the meditator has got to train this elephant. And he's going to be working on the three principles, which are wisdom, habituation, and open-heartedness. And he starts to tame the elephant. Now, just a couple of other things. The fire on the path is the amount of effort that you have to put in to your meditation practice. And so you can see as it goes up the path, you need less and less effort to get into that meditative state. And then once you pass about pain.
No, but then up on the very top of the rainbow, there's a lot of effort.
That's right. That's coming back to save all other human beings, but we'll get to that later.
Oh.
But let's just concentrate down the bottom. There's a lot of fire down the bottom, which means at the beginning you need to put in a lot of effort. It takes a lot of effort to, first of all, get to the cushion in the first place, and then sit there and try to keep coming back to the breath. The good thing is that you don't have to wait till the very end to accrue the benefits. There are benefits that accrue at every single stage. At every stage, your life gets a little bit better and better. Now, stage one is, of course, the beginning. And here, we call this stage orientation. In other words, you're orienting your mind to the meditation object. So you're trying to take the meditation object, in our case it's the breath, coming back to the breath, back to the breath, back to the breath. Now when we do that, for some people it's the first time that they've actually taken a serious look inside their mind. And when they do that for the first time, some people are quite shocked at what they see. It's like, oh my goodness, I didn't realise my mind was so out of control. There's thoughts going left, right, forward, backwards, everywhere. It's like a, train station at rush hour with people going everywhere. I didn't realise my mind was chaotic. And some people even blame the meditation. They say, oh, I can't do my meditation. It just makes me even more crazy than I already am. But it's not really the meditation. It's the fact that it's the first time they've actually looked in, I guess, but it does stir up a little bit of fear or whatever, and then that causes us to think too much, so to speak. So, this is an interesting insight to see how out of control our minds really are. And when we try to keep them on the breath and we go 1, 2, 3, now I wonder what we're going to be doing after we finish here today. It's like, oh my goodness, I can only count to 3. How, it's quite amazing how we can't even stay concentrated for very long at all. But the one good thing about this is it does at least lead to some sort of insight and perhaps a bit of compassion for yourself. And you sort of realise, well, no wonder I keep getting into arguments with people and I keep getting frustrated when things go against me and all of that. My mind is so out of control, I can't, it's no wonder my mind tends to go down to these tracks of being angry or whatever, lonely or jealous or whatever. So that leads to compassion for ourselves and an understanding of why we suffer so much, why we are in this pickle that we're in. I guess also it leads to a sense of compassion for others, because let's face it, at least we're sitting here in this circle trying to work with our mind. So to an extent we are a little bit more advanced than other people out there whose minds are so completely out of control they don't even want to come to sit in meditation. So if you think about it, the whole world is their minds are pretty much out of control, and so it's sort of no wonder that there's so much problems in the world, and we're lucky that there aren't more problems than there actually are with people that are so overcome with desire and anger. So we sort of get this humbling at stage 1. We get this humbling, and if we do it correctly, we should get minor wins, and we can look up to other people that have done meditation for a number of months or years and aspire to be like that. And so if we keep going, we keep inspired, we eventually get to stage 2. And stage 2 is called repeated orientation. Now, in some diagrams, the fire on page 2 is even bigger than the fire on stage 1. And that kind of represents that we've decided we really want to do this meditation thing, and we've got to put in a lot more effort. So in number 1, we're still a little undecided, and we are giving it a fair bit of effort, but then we actually, because it doesn't work, but at the same time we say, no, we're going to make this work, and you actually put in a lot of effort in stage 2. But the interesting thing is sometimes the more effort you put in, the more your mind tends to get distracted. There's this catch-22. It's like, it's not fair, I'm trying harder, and yet my meditation is not even as good as it was back at stage 1. So you get frustrated and you want to sit longer. You think, well, the answer is to sit longer. I'm going to sit for an hour. Now I'm going to sit for an hour and a half. You push yourself. But sometimes that pushing has the very reverse effect from what you wanted it to, and your mind gets even more scattered. So, and also at this stage, your mind is scattered, and as I've been telling you, the teacher says you've just got to keep bringing it back, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. And again, the more times you bring it back, the more frustrated you get. And there's a lesson starting to set in here that the meditation is about bringing the mind back calmly. Because if you bring the mind back with a sense of animosity, that why did my mind get distracted again? You just stir up the mind even more, and you're more likely to get distracted. Whereas if you go, oh, my mind's gone again. Oh, that's only the 57th time it's gone. Well done, mind, come back again. And you take that kind of attitude of, it doesn't matter how many times my mind gets distracted, I'm just going to calmly bring it back each time. And in fact, the meditation practice is just about bringing it back. Then what happens is you actually calm. You get calm, and then, ironically, the mind doesn't get as distracted as it used to when you're getting frustrated. So this is the process of stage 2 is just bringing the mind back time and time and time again, and trying to reduce that sense of frustration. On the good side, because you have been pushing the body a little bit, and you do start to get a little bit of, the body starts to get easier to work with, so you start to get a little bit less pain, you can sit for longer, so that helps. You find ways to sit, you know how long you can push the body before you need to swap to a stool, you get into a bit of a rhythm. And you begin to start to comprehend at this stage that the main problem in meditation is actually the distractions coming from within the mind. Before, you thought, I can't meditate with a blooming bird squawking this morning, and someone's wandering around the room and someone just coughed. How can I expect to be meditating? So the problems are always, I can't meditate because it's outside. But at level 2, you start to shut the mind down from the outside problems and realise they're not really problems as big as you thought they were. The real issue is your distracted mind keeping on coming back. Okay? So that's stage 2. But if you keep bringing your mind back time and time and time again, there are periods of stillness. And in one of those periods of stillness, you might find that you're into stage 3. Now, the difference between stage 3, and I'll just talk about this. So, also at stage 2, you can see that meditator has the hook. So he's using the hook more than the rope of mindfulness. And this indicates that often he's like trying to understand the mind, trying to harness the mind, and he's using frustration. He's sort of getting frustrated. Why doesn't mind why don't you obey me, mind? Instead of being relaxed and using the rope to try and get the rope around the elephant's neck. But nevertheless, there's a patch of white on the elephant's head and actually a small patch of white on the monkey's head as well. So you are starting to understand that the mind, how aversion creates energy, which creates distraction, and how calmness creates passivity, which allows you to calm yourself down. And then in stage 3, you've brought out the rope of mindfulness. And the elephant is turning back and saying, "Oh, hello, do you really want to get to know me?" I see. So he's taking notice, a little bit of notice of the meditator. So the difference between 2 and 3 is supposedly that you can keep your mind on the object 50% of the time. So if you can keep your mind on, we meditate for 1 hour, and not necessarily all at once, but within that 1 hour, at least half of your meditation session is counting the breath, breathing in, breathing out, breathing out, then you're actually at stage 3. So this is how difficult it is. Even at stage 3, 40 to 50% of your attention is off in distraction at any one time. But this is stage 3. And also within stage 3, your body will start to settle, and you will have periods where you do feel quite easy on the breath. It's not so much hard work. It's like, I'm staying on the breath quite easily. I don't even need to do all those colours and counting. I can just sit here and breathe for a while. And then the distractions start coming and you say, I better get back to work again here to orientate the mind back to the breath. So here again in stage 3, you're really starting to realise that all distractions are internal. And when you hear a bird squawk, you realise that it's actually not the bird squawking that's distracted you. It's suddenly the thought that you've had, there's a bird outside, or gee, that bird sounds like a boy yelling, or something like that. Whatever it is, it's the thought that is distracting, not the sound. I've got a little story where a lady was in one of these retreats and was meditating, and there was quite a loud clock. It's tick-tock, tick-tock. And she said, I can't meditate with that clock. It's just too disturbing. How can anyone meditate? It's a terrible sound. Like, it just takes me out of meditation straight away. I just need peace and quiet. So I said, okay, all right, we'll see what we can do. And I took the clock down and I put it away in the cupboard, so you couldn't put a tea towel over it, so you couldn't see it. And she said, that's much better. And then the next morning, she did the meditation and she put her hand up. She says, did you hear the magpies or the birds outside? Weren't they so beautiful? That made me go into this meditative state that was so peaceful and blissful. I was like, right. So you're saying the sound of the birds helps you meditation, but the sound of the clock pulls you out of meditation. They're both just sound. It's just sound, But, people label it. If you label that a nice sound, you go, that's a nice sound, so, it can make me meditate. If I label it a bad sound, because some people might hear the clock and go, tick, 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 and, it helps them meditate. So it's just the way we label it. So stage 3, this becomes very clear. And we're also becoming clear that we can't fight distractions. Instead, the way to deal with distractions is just the opposite. We need to befriend distractions. We need to be able to say, another distraction. Welcome, my good friend. Come on in. Let's see how long you're going to stay. Are you going to stay a little while? Or are you going to stay? Don't mind me, I'm just counting the breath. You just stay over there in your little place while I keep counting the breath. I thought that's all right. You're going already? So soon? oh, I didn't realise you didn't only wanted to say so long. Don't worry, there'll be another distraction along in a little while. So you get this kind of attitude of befriending distractions. And then as you befriend them, calmness sets in and you are able to meditate better. And in fact, when a distraction disappears like that, there's a sense of achievement that you've dealt very well with it. And that sense of achievement actually adds to your sense of calmness. So distractions can sometimes be helpers. They can both be helpers in order to remind us that we need to be attentive. So if that distraction comes in, it's a reminder that you didn't pick it up early enough. So therefore your attention was slipping and you allowed that distraction in. Because at the higher stages, you're so alert that you almost feel the stirring of the mind even before it becomes a distraction. So you can almost cut distractions off even before they bubble up into the conscious mind. You can detect them at the very unconscious level. But at this stage, you're just sort of seeing those distractions as both helpful, and then when they disappear, they leave you feeling calm. Oh, now, sorry, I should have been talking about this earlier, but at each stage, there's also this sense of seeing the parallels in your meditation practice to life in general. So like I said, when you see your mind is out of control, you have compassion for others. When you start to see that being frustrated with a problem only makes it worse, you look at problems in a new light, don't you? That's on stage 2. And in stage 3, because the very difficulties are the things that are helping you with your practice, you actually start drawing conclusions. No, if the difficulties in meditation help me have a more peaceful and happy mind, I wonder, are there any parallels between that and the difficulties I'm having in my current relationship with my boss or my fiance or whatever? Maybe there's something to learn there. Maybe hidden in those difficulties are a wise teacher waiting to try to teach me something. And of course we talk about that, don't we, in normal life, that maybe adversity helps us grow, helps us mature, helps us become more patient with people and things like that. So on stage 3, we're starting to get a great deal of synergy between life and meditation. And we keep practicing, and there's still a lot of fire at stage 3. Oh, and on stage 3 you'll notice there's a little rabbit. Now the rabbit occurs when we do start calming our mind down. And there's a difference between gross distraction and subtle distraction, and gross dullness and subtle dullness. So you'll remember that meditation is like walking on a tightrope. On the one side your mind gets distracted and starts thinking too much, and on the other side your mind falls asleep. And you've got to navigate between the two, and at the same time increase the intensity of your mind and the clarity of your mind. So subtle dullness.
So you're looking for the rabbit.
Oh, the rabbit? On stage 3 there's a little lump on the elephant's back.
Oh, there it is. It's there. Yeah.
And that's the little rabbit. Because the rabbit kind of lives underground, so he's in a little dark burrow where it's kind of comfortable and dull. And that's what you feel like sometimes in meditation. At this stage, sometimes the body problems have disappeared, and you might have a little bit of pain, but you can live with it, and you actually feel quite peaceful. And then what happens is you go into what's called subtle dullness. Oh, it feels so good. And you can still keep counting. 1, 2, 3. And it doesn't actually, before then, the subtle dullness will gradually transform into gross dullness, which is falling asleep. But at this stage, you can actually spend quite a bit of time in subtle dullness. And people mistake that for stage 5. And that's where you got to. Yeah? So you sort of mistake that for good meditation practice. But it's not, it's a fault. Okay? So remember that real meditation practice, you're totally alert. You're like, oh, I'm aware of everything in the world. I can just see everything if I wanted to. I could be, my awareness is so heightened that I could, do intense mathematical questions. I can think of 5 colours and 7 countings and 3 fish and 7 body postures all at once. That's how sort of your mind gets to be very sharp. So in subtle dullness, you've got to try to lift yourself out of subtle dullness. And subtle excitement is this idea that you're kind of feeling good about yourself. Oh, I'm going so well, much better than Lynn over there. Lynn's sort of, and it's that kind of subtle kind of pride, I guess, coming through. But that again, it's from, it's a good thing. Sometimes it can be, I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to come away this weekend, and all these people are such lovely people. I feel love towards all of them. They're wonderful. And that's a wonderful thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But from a meditation point of view, it's considered a fault. Yeah? From a life point of view, it's good. But if you want to advance further, then it is a distraction which is stopping you from getting to more deeper states of peace.
I find when I can really relate to that. So when I get to that stage of what I realise now is subtle dullness, I just go back to checking through the posture.
Yes.
And it just kind of brings you up a bit and kind of snaps you out of it a little bit, and you can get back on with it.
Yep, good. Yep. All right, so this is stage 3 and stage 4.
So is there any relevance to the elephant looking back at the meditator?
Oh, the elephant's kind of starting to make that connection with the mind and saying, do you really want to know me? And the meditator saying, yes, I'm serious. I want to tame you. And the elephant is starting to take notice of the meditator, so that when the meditator says meditate, the mind follows. It's not following like on stage 6, the meditator is in front of the elephant. But at least at stage 5, the elephant is looking at the elephant, and it sort of does a bit of the time it does what the meditator says it should do. So if it says meditate on this object, meditate on this object. If you're awake at night and you can't sleep, and you, the meditator, say, no, it's time for sleep now, we're not going to think about that problem, the mind goes, yeah, all right, okay, I'll just go to sleep. So the mind does, whereas before that, the mind goes, stuff you, I'm just going to think about this problem. This is a good little bone to chew, and I'm just going to keep gnawing away until, at least 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. Anyway, so stage 4 is called close orientation. So the meditator has got closer to the mind, and there's more white on the elephant. All the legs are white, and is getting to know the mind. And in stage 4, we're pretty much counting, let's say, 90 to 95% of the time. So for an hour, about 55 minutes of that hour should be on the breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So as I said, this is really, you can possibly achieve this at home if you meditate an hour a day, but typically you'd want to be sort of doing maybe a 10-day retreat or something like that, even possibly a 3-day retreat or something like that, to sort of get up to this stage. And these are, some people will go on a 50-day retreat and never get here, and other people will be able to do it at home. So everyone's an individual. And the mind is kind of getting close to being pacified at this time. And here we very much rarely go into gross excitement and gross dullness. So we're dealing only here with subtle variations. 1 minute you're feeling a bit sleepy, the next minute you're feeling a little bit, your mind, they say it's like water running under ice. So the top of your concentration, like your stabilisation is quite good, but there's like these rippling thoughts underneath that kind of come and go, come and go, come and go, come and go, come and go. And it just sort of keep going under there. You're trying to get the thoughts earlier and earlier and earlier to try to reduce the impact of when they finally come. And it's actually, at this stage, you're starting to be able to meditate for 2 hours at a time. And actually, interestingly, they say at this stage, instead of trying to lengthen your meditation sessions, they say shorten it. Go back to 10-minute meditations. So you meditate for 10 minutes, and at the end of 10 minutes, you get up and you go for a walk around for 3 or 4 minutes, and then you sit down and you see if you can get back into that. You see if you can get back to stage 4 in half the amount of time. And then get up and walk around, come back in half the amount of time. So you're learning to sort of go from a waking state, so to speak, into a deep meditative state quicker and quicker. And this is supposed to be a good way to, shortcut and keep the intensity of your meditation. And gradually, you'll get to be able to stay on the meditation object like 100% of the time. And at this stage, you're also dealing with distractions, and it's very clear to you now that all distractions are mind-made. There's no such thing as external distractions. All distractions are mind-made, and in every difficulty, there's a silver lining. And all you need to do is find the silver lining in each difficulty, and you can transform the mind. So you don't repress it, you don't express it anymore, you transform the mind into being a better mind through the act of dealing with distractions in your meditation practice and difficulties in your life. and that leads you to about stage 5. Now, also at this stage, because we're also starting to see all problems as a projection of the mind. And in fact, we are questioning whether everything is maybe a projection of the mind. Is Rose really Rose, or is Rose just a projection of my mind? At least the Rose that I see. Anyone want to answer that?
Metaphysics, quantum physics.
Everything's a projection.
Everything's a projection, yeah? So Rose is kind of there, but really the Rose that I see is totally a projection of my own mind. So if I see her as a good person, I'm projecting that. If I see her as bad, it's my projection.
Just saying, that you can't actually see anything through your eyes. It's your brain that transforms it. If we saw everything straight through our eyes, we would never see anything.
Right.
True fact. And also it would all be upside down.
That's
And
right.
then your brain works it out and
Your
makes
brain
it,
flips it,
and then puts it through light and stuff, certain things, so you can actually see stuff.
Wow. So you're saying we're not really here, we're just made of particles and energy, and you'll just see straight through us, but the brain creates that.
Yeah, the brain creates that, and it puts all the particles in place to say, so this particle looks like this. That's why colour blindness is actually affected by the mind, because they might see that particle as they might think it's green. That's what causes colour blindness.
Wow, so there you go. Case proven.
Learn some good stuff.
Amazing what they learn at school. Anyway,
Yeah.
so stage 5, they say the difference between stage 4 and 5 is at stage 4 you can see an obstacle and stop it and not make it get any worse. And on stage 5 you have the ability to see an obstacle and transform it to make you into a better meditator. Yeah, so these are all just generalities, okay? But at this stage, you're really learning how to transform and see the positive side of every difficulty and every distraction that comes your way. And this is called subdued orientation. So you are now in the stages 5, 6, and 7 are all the subdued pacification type of stage. And so you're subduing your mind because it's now staying on the meditation object for as long as you would like it to, 1 hour, 2 hours. And to indicate that, the meditator has now become in front of the mind. So it's quite a flip around at stage 5. And by the way, at this stage you'll be making, there will be a big,
and
and the monkey's behind as well.
Yeah, it's following the mind.
Following the mind. And at this stage, it's quite likely that you'll be making massive transformations in your life. You'll be changing jobs, you'll be finding a new circle of friends, you'll be going on holidays to retreats rather than to, you know, the Maldives or whatever. Because for you now, everything is about the mind. There is no such thing as having to go on holiday to find a peaceful place. There's that doesn't exist. Peace exists only in the mind, so there's no point in trying to leave Adelaide to go somewhere to find peace, because it's all here. Better you go to a place where there's lots of meditators where you can learn more stuff. So you'll see massive transformations in the lives of people who have sort of reached stage 5. There's no laziness once you reach stage 5. No laziness. You meditate for as long as you desire fit. That's not to say the body doesn't get tired, but you will decide when the body is tired, and you will decide that you need 6 hours sleep. It won't be, I don't feel like getting up, I think I'll just lie in a bit, you know. Yeah, so you can change them, and you start to see problems in your life, and you're able to transform problems in your life. And then stage 6 is just really a continuation of this. And well, I started saying earlier but didn't get to complete, was that sort of from stage 4 definitely onto stage 5 and 6, we advance by really seeing the projection of the mind. And this is a bit of a hint towards the advanced retreat, if I can persuade you guys. On the advanced retreat, we start looking at the foundation of thought, foundation of thought, 4 foundations of mindfulness. Mindfulness of thought and mindfulness of phenomena. And that really is getting this idea in your minds that everything is a projection, and therefore if it's only a projection, then it's easier to transform. And when you understand this, all problems are a projection, when you notice that they are mind-made, then they can just dissolve right in front of your eyes. And so just by just by seeing a distraction and knowing that it's arising from the mind and it's not real, by having that conviction, it actually it helps the thought formation to just dissolve. And when that thought formation dissolves, it's actually quite stunning, because you go, oh, I couldn't believe it. I always thought that was a problem, and now I realise it never even existed in the first place. And it leaves you in this state of very deep meditation state, where for a while there's no thoughts arise at any point. So we really go into that in the advanced retreat, which we do in Strathalbyn, if you guys are interested at some later stage. And so we're using that in sort of the end of stage 4 to get to stage 5, and definitely in stage 5 and 6, is we're starting to see everything as mind. And when we realise that if you dissolve mind back from whence it came, before it turned into a problem, then the nature of mind is blissful and peaceful. And so this is where we get to say that everything has one taste. You might have heard that in spirituality. Everything is of one taste, the taste of bliss. And so that's because everything, when you dissolve it back to mind, has this blissful flavour about it. And so you're experiencing, in stage 6, you're experiencing great states of bliss, and they call it piti in Sanskrit. Also in stage 6, you understand that because everything is mind, an object is the same, whether it's your breath or a cup or a person or a piece of poo. You can use anything as a meditation object. It doesn't matter, because the object is meaningless. The object is only to tie your mind to that object in order for you to understand when you're being distracted. So you can meditate on anything, including your distractions. So this time, when the distraction comes, and they don't come very often, instead of pushing the distraction away, you take the distraction as the meditation object. So that's really befriending it, isn't it? It's like, welcome distraction. Not only are you welcome, I'm going to use you as my primary focus. I'm going to meditate on the distraction and pacify my mind on the distraction. So imagine having a fight with your spouse or whatever, and that thing comes up in your mind, and now, instead of trying to push it away because it makes you get agitated, you use that very thought as an object to pacify your mind even more, because you also have been able to transform it and seen the benefits that that issue has had. So this is stage 6. Great awareness that distraction is thought and has one flavour. And you're only looking at mindfulness now instead of the mind. So the meditator himself is looking around and he's only looking at the stick. He's only looking at his, goad. I think mahouts have like a goad, don't they? They call it a goad. Anyway, doesn't matter, but his little hook. So that's insight. So he's looking towards his own mindfulness and insight. He doesn't even have to worry about the mind anymore because he knows the mind is following. And in fact, there's not really many problems at stage 6. The meditator is out there actually looking for problems in life. Will anyone be horrible to me, please? Because I need some challenges. I've got no more challenges. I feel peaceful all the time. I need someone to disturb me and my mind so that I can practice. That sort of attitude. So that leads to level 7. And level 7 is total pacification. So the monk is nothing phases them anymore. And you're only working with the most subtle type of dullness. So you're totally pacified. The only problem is you might gradually at some times get a little bit dull or a little bit happy to take you away from that perfect equanimity. It's like just the final few little ripples in the pond. So they are still, these little ripples are still faults, but they're very, very tiny, and they quickly disappear. The faults almost disappear by themselves. In fact, level 7 doesn't even need to meditate. Or you could say that they're in meditation 24 hours a day. They're usually lucid dreaming. They're aware when they're awake. So they see the clear light of sleep. They are able to, and whenever a distraction comes in the mind, there's no effort, there's no fire at level 7. So what happens is the meditator just allows it to be, and the ripples just pan out by themselves. And in fact, I've not been through the obstacles yet, but the last obstacle is over-application. And the biggest problem at stage 6 and 7 is because you're so good at bringing the mind back, you sort of jump in and you use what's called over-application. You put remedies there where no remedies are really needed. If you just left the mind to its own devices, it would come back to that state of equilibrium. Anyway, so that's stage 7. And it says the practice here is discontinue meditation when things are going good and discontinue meditation when things are going bad. So you keep discontinuing meditation. You're using every opportunity to work with obstacles. You have enormous increase in flexibility of the mind, and the mind is completely imperturbable. So nothing will take you away from your meditation practice. There is nothing that could. There's nothing so important as your meditation practice on your mind, because that's where all your bliss and happiness comes from. And if you met a stage 7 person, if they walked into the room, you would know it. You sort of feel their aura. Like they're the people that kind of have those auras around them. Stage 7 and above. They'd be classified as saint. We'd say that. Saint. You're a saint. Anyway, so that's stage 7. So stage 8, the elephant is completely white, and you are at this stage, you're at a stage of calm abiding, what we call calm abiding, because at this stage nothing perturbs your meditation practice. And they say in stage 8, the only thing that is there's no faults, but there's still movement of the mind. So the mind has, like in a deep ocean, but it has very slight movement. And then there's nothing you can do here except just wait. And over time, the mind will gradually pacify itself more and more and more until it gets to stage 9, which is one-pointed mindfulness, which is where you can stay one-pointedly on a single object and think cup, and stay there and thinking cup for 1 hour or 2 hours. Your mind doesn't move. And that's the culmination of the practice. And because this is Buddhist and iconography, then he's sitting on his mind, his elephant, and he's going to nirvana, and then he comes back with a sword in hand and lots of effort to come back to rescue the rest of us. Thank goodness. Coming back to rescue us, poor mortals down here on stage 1 or 2. Yeah.
Stage half.
Stage half. Yeah. Stage half. All right, so I hope that was inspirational to me when I first learned it. So I hope it's somewhat inspirational to you, to show that people have been all the way up to sort of stage 9 and beyond, and it is possible, and there's a clear path, and it's not beyond the scope of everybody here. Everyone can do it if they're willing to put in the effort. So I hope that is inspiring. Any questions?
How many hours a day would you need to invest to climb on a rapid scale?
Well, obviously, the answer is more the better. So, to get to stage 3, if you were meditating 1 hour a day, I think there's every chance that you would get to stage 3. If you were to meditate 1 hour a day every day and then once a year go on a retreat, or maybe even a couple of times a year, there's no reason why you couldn't get to stage 4, maybe even stage 5 if you were to do a long retreat. Typically, they would say if you did a 6-month retreat, there's a good chance that you would get to stage 8 or 9. Yeah, that's 6 months, 6-month retreat. And that's meditating.
What stage do you think you're at?
12 hours a day. Well, so it goes up and down. So I did a 10-month retreat, and I felt that I was around stage 5 or 6 at that stage, at the end of that retreat. So, but even at stage 6 is incredible. I had amazing experiences. So it's worthwhile. Even getting to that stage is amazing. But since then, obviously, I've kind of come back, and my concentration is not anywhere near like it was when I had finished that retreat. And I'm inspired as Manny grows up and I have more free time. I'm going to go back and see if I can get back to stage 6 and beyond.
And maybe you could try and get to stage 11.
Well, I can maybe see if there are other stages.
Or create another one.
Or create stage 12.
Yeah, so see how we go. Stage 9. So, yeah.
I guess in the Western world, in our practical lives,
Because there's 2 more elephants.
it's not
after
even
stage
everybody would even want to go there. Do you know what I mean? It's just not. It's not practical to be a 9.
It sounds.
You'd have to live else. You'd have to.
Yeah.
I don't know what you'd have to
It
do.
often sounds a bit self-indulgent. Does that sound silly?
Yeah, well, people say that of Buddhists. They say that they go away in caves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens is, I can see that point of view, but the idea is, whilst you are in your own turmoil, you cannot help people. If you're drowning, you can't go in and try to help another person drown. You've got to learn to swim and be a strong swimmer first. So if you dedicate 3 or 4 years of self-practice, then when you eventually come out, the remaining 20 years of your life, you'll be far more used to people than if you had not gone and done that practice yourself and you just try and tell them that. And this is really true. My teacher, Lama Chodak, he did a 3-year retreat, and then they came and kicked him out. Because we said to him, because he did a 3-year retreat, we said, wow, Didn't you? Like at the end of 3 years, you must have been such itching to get out of retreat. Imagine being locked away for 3 years, and imagine being able to then be released. And he's like, no, we didn't want to leave. But we liked it. No, they had to come and kick us out of retreat. I wanted to stay there. But they're like, no, you've got to get out and help others. Your job is to now give back and help others. That's what we do. But having gone through that and been in that position now, he only has to walk in the room and you feel inspired. Just his mere presence is a teaching. You know, he can go into an auditorium, and if you go and see the Dalai Lama or people like that, you don't even have to listen to him. You're just inspired by his presence. So, being an example of what you can become is one of the most inspiring things you can do. So, no, I see your point, but no, I firmly believe that if we can work on ourselves with the aim of helping others. And by working on ourselves, we will actually help more people than just going out and trying to help people with our own. There's lots of do-gooders out there that themselves are in a pile of poo, and they just, you know, and they do more. I'm not saying they do more harm than good, but they don't do as much good as if they were more even and equanimous and that sort of thing. So it's definitely worthwhile. And indeed, by the way, the motivation is always, I'm gaining enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. That's the prayer. I'm always doing this for the benefit of others, for the benefit of others. I'm going to sit here for the benefit of others. Because there are people who will just go into meditation and just goodbye, well, that's enough. There are definitely those people. And there's no problem with that. At least they're not causing harm, you know, living on a bag of rice for a month, not doing any harm. But, yeah. All right, so we're going to go into morning tea. We'll finish the video there. And we're going to go into discussion.